Let's get started. Welcome to the Gig Econ Show. I'm Bill Davis. We've got
I'm
Zane
Zane
Miller.
Miller.
Hi, Zane.
And
Hi.
I'm Callan Don.
And we have a special guest tonight. His name is Brian Menzel. Is it Menzel or Menzel?
Menzel. That's
Menzel.
interesting. Yeah, Menzel. It's a like a German name, and if it's Menzel, that's the way that the Jewish people pronounce it, like Idina Menzel. But I'm just a plain old Menzel.
All right, great. I want to before we get to Brian, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping, and that is, we're on a Zoom call tonight. Sometimes in business, in a new venture, you get thrown a curveball, and you have to learn to be nimble, and you have to learn to adjust. And I was thrown a curveball twice this week, and I swung at both of them, but I missed. So, needless to say, I'm not able to broadcast to Facebook Live, but we wanted to try a Zoom call anyway, just to see how this was going to go. So that's what we're doing. And I apologize if you had to register and sign up and all that stuff, but it's all good.
I'm already like I have a Zoom account. Like I have accounts for everything, right? I've got Teams, I've got Zoom, I've got GoToMeeting, I've got Facebook, I've got anyway. But talking about that just a little bit, like I've been a solopreneur for 15 plus years, and so I lived through 2008 when my income literally just got cut in half in like September of 2008 because everyone just was like, yeah, we can't afford to pay you anyway. It's sort of like now, except now. I'll be honest, with cybersecurity, I've been signing clients left and right on securing stuff because hackers are just going crazy right now, trying to get into people and I work with primarily like businesses like of like 10 to 50 employees, and they know that they're like, yeah, we got to be on the cybersecurity stuff because a lot of my clients are in the financial services industry, and so they're regulated at the wazoo, and
Right.
And they know, and so that's what I do as my date. Well, you know what, we can get how about we get into me a little bit later.
That's a really interesting point. I got things I can say to that, but more of the housekeeping point, Bill, next time. I'm just gonna, I think from here on out, we just let host just announce everybody, because I was like, I'm Zane Miller. Oh, sorry. So from here on out, housekeeping, yeah, let's just have host and name everybody so that it's not, let me too, Zane Miller. But no, those are some really interesting points about like cybersecurity now that I haven't thought of, but I'll wait my turn till later.
No problem. So we will post the video of this show on Facebook in the group later. So it'll be up tonight, if not tonight, tomorrow. They render pretty quick.
It depends how long we talk, because the longer you talk, the longer it takes Zoom to render it, and then you got to edit it and cut out the first 15 minutes of us talking. Yeah. So maybe tomorrow.
Yeah. But we're gonna try to stick to an hour. But if we don't, that means this is a really good discussion and we're learning a lot. So
I just want to throw in here real quick before we continue, Bill. In lieu of not having the Facebook live chat tonight, that's streaming live as we're doing the interview in the show, Zoom's group chat is up in here. So anybody who's joining us is free to type into the group chat. You should all be unmuted and available to do that. So please feel free and interact in the group chat, and we'll try and address your comments or questions, concerns, any of that kind of stuff. I'll try to set some time in here where we can make sure that we get to those things just as we would if we were doing it right here on Facebook.
Ooh, we've got a call-in person.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome, call-in person.
Hi, caller, you're on line one. Sorry, wrong format.
Awesome. So that's all I had for housekeeping. I do want to mention also, though, real quick, that we do have a podcast. And as soon as I publish the audio on our podcast machine, which is anchor.fm, if you want to check that out, you can find us there. And our URL is just anchor.fm/gig-econ-show. So without further ado, I'm going to let Callan introduce Brian in a little bit more formal way, and then we'll just start talking about cybersecurity.
So music for me.
So the official intro here. Brian has been securing and supporting multi-million-dollar businesses in Toronto, Canada for almost 20 years. And in that time, he's fought against and mitigated online threats of every shape, size, and color. Having seen how hundreds of people use the internet, and sometimes not so safely, Brian has developed a framework that can teach anyone, including technophobes, ways to be safe online and protect their online businesses, which is the most important part, and one of the reasons we asked him to be here on the show, because as entrepreneurs, we have a tendency not to think about the ramifications of what we're doing when we're trying to be quick and agile and to move, and we're in that mode of get things done, and we don't always think about how safe the things are that we do. So Brian, welcome.
Did you just see Zayn chug out of a 2-liter jug of like almond milk or something? I was like, that was all right.
Zayn,
and he's muted, so he can't even talk back.
I did not even mute him.
Time.
He must be saying something really bad if he's muting himself.
Well,
okay. I thought I could quietly mute myself and no one would notice. It's iced coffee, okay? It's not. It's just I need a little pick me up. I'm just gonna say, oh, the camera did see me. Okay, I thought I was off camera, and
No,
that's gonna make the blooper reel.
But apparently I can't mute myself and then unmute because it's like no, host will not let you unmute. But I'm like, no, I need to.
It's like a 5-year-old. Like, no, you can't see me. You can't see me.
Yeah, I was off screen. So okay,
Brian. Speaking of you can't see me, isn't that how a lot of us approach internet security and online security?
1000%. It's known in the industry as security through obscurity, and it's 1000% ineffective.
Okay, I've got another one that's a good follow-up that is actually cyber related. I was featured on another product back in 2012 when Amazon Simple Storage just barely came out, right? And they didn't really mention anything about like, hey, you should lock that, So everybody, like I realized that my product was far more popular than I realized because let's just put this in simple terms. It was a $200 product and there were so many downloads of pirated versions. Like, hey, let's just rip his security open. Amazon locked it up in 72 hours and said, you owe us $4,000 for 20 terabytes worth of downloads.
Bandwidth.
Yeah, and that's
on bandwidth.
That's basically what happened. Is they were just like, you want this $200 product? It's free. And then I reverse calculated it. If every single purchase was if every download was a purchase, I would have made $19 million in 72 hours. That is how many and no, I did the math. 20 terabytes.
Yeah.
Divided by 2 gigabytes because my thing was video and so gigantic. $19 million in 72 hours.
And the scary thing is in 2012, when you're like, oh yeah, they didn't tell anybody that maybe you should lock this up, and you'd be like, well, now we're in 2020, so surely everyone knows about that now.
Anything. You should totally lock it up. They're like, Amazon's like, what are you talking about? It's fine.
Yeah. No. And there's companies like Shodan that make a business of basically just scanning AWS to find people with unlocked buckets just to see what's in there.
Wow. Okay. Just
and it's publicly available. Like on Shodan, you can get an account on Shodan, and they basically scan the internet for Internet of Things devices that are exposed to the internet, and then they just like try admin passwords on them to see if they can basically hack your doorbell camera, so that or your webcams in your house or
just
whatever. And like it's like yeah.
Like, you can even remotely control some of those cameras once you're in, because like the default passwords and stuff have never been changed.
Oh, no, nobody changes this. Nobody changes this stuff, and then nobody thinks about the fact that they're like, because okay, so with cybersecurity, what you have to understand is that basically what you're doing on the internet, on every single moment you're on the internet, is you are trying to figure out a balance of trading privacy for convenience, right?
Well said.
You are basically trading privacy for convenience. That's what social media makes it convenient to talk to your friends or to promote your business, but you are giving up some privacy. And so that's as you sort of, although you probably don't think about it, you're taking sort of a calculated risk when you do anything online. Is like, what am I exposing myself to get what I'm getting? Like, you have, and this is something I talk about a lot, is you have services that, okay, here's a great example. So you go onto your Facebook feed and one of your friends has posted that they have a 146 IQ, and you're like, you could just take this test too. And so you're like, oh, sure, I'll click on it. And you take the test and you're like, oh, and because as soon as you take it, of course, no matter what you answer, you get like a 147, right? And so then you're like, oh yeah, I totally beat Bill, so I'm gonna post that. And you go to hit post, and all of a sudden it pops up and it goes, okay, we'll post this for you, but just a second. By the way, what we want is we want access to your public profile, your friends list, your likes, your this, your that, your that. And you're like, yeah, but I want to post that 147. So I go, and bam, you've just all of a sudden given this company that has no privacy policy that you've read, you've basically given them access to your entire Facebook profile. Right?
Yeah, I see. I've seen that so many times of just like, Facebook wants access to your profile, and
Yep.
I guess I'm not. I guess I'm of the few, but I always click on, okay, what are you going to access? And then it's like it gives this laundry list, and I'm like, no, 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 and it's like, this app won't work, and it's like, then the app won't work. Oh well, because I don't want to give you just unfettered access to just hammer in the dumbest ads through my profile.
Means you are literally more aware than like 95% of people on Facebook.
I'm awoke.
Because that's exactly it. Like, you can go through, and a lot of the times they'll ask for the world, but what they actually need to do what they do is like your public profile. And so you can go through and you can just go uncheck, public profile. Oh, you can do your job without me giving you the whole farm. Thank you.
And that's why I do the same thing. I'm like, okay, if you're going to get to this point, I'm going to ask for the world, because that means you really want it. Do I want the world? No, but I want to see how many boxes you're going to check just to hop over that thing. So yeah, like you said, I do the opposite. I want to make sure, okay, does this person really want the thing? Let's see. And I put up a bunch of barriers, like not real barriers to entry, to make sure that they want it, kind of thing. But I have a completely different context of why. But yeah, if you make sure and reduce all barriers as much as possible, then people are like, oh, well, yeah, security and stuff like that. But like, if you don't want the world, don't ask for the world.
But like, or other things, like right now, this is when I talk to people about like delivering stuff on their funnels. I'm like, you always deliver it via the email, because unless you're running Never Bounce on your funnel, every time I get to a funnel where there's a free white paper or something, and they go, just give us your email address and you'll get it, the very first thing I do is I put in a fake email address. I just make one up to see if it'll take it, and then go to the download page where I could just download it, right?
And that's, let me guess, that's also like 98%. They're just like, just find you can dump in a fake email address, and it's not going to do any checks or balance.
It's not going to do any checks. So what I say, and this is what and I understand that, like, from a marketing perspective, there's the satisfaction rating of like the instant gratification of just getting it once you give your email address. But if you don't know about, say, a service like NeverBounce, and this is not cybersecurity related at all, but if you don't know about a service like NeverBounce, which will actually verify that when they put in an email address, it's at least deliverable, so that it's not polluting your list.
Yeah.
Right? Then what you're doing is you put up a free lead magnet to collect email addresses, and you have like yahoos like me who are absolutely going to put in, I'm always Bob at I'm Bob at blah.com, like, right? So that's what I try.
Someone at somewhere.com.
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
So if Bob at blah.com gets a download link, well, that's great. You can start emailing him all you want.
That's it, Brian. We can no longer be friends. I'm done with all this. No.
That's right. Just get up and walk away.
Yeah, but literally, like never bounce. I think per email address it's like half a cent or something, like half a cent or something,
Wow.
and it's
Yeah.
not much to run it. Like, and I have an affiliate link, but yeah, it's like super cheap, and it's like a snippet of code you put wherever your email field is, and all it does is when they go to try to put it in, it goes bam. It just they try to send an email address to that, and if it comes back as this email address doesn't exist, then it immediately goes back and they can't submit the form because they haven't entered an email address. So
no, that's really smart.
There's a
Great
tip for the
service.
marketers.
So from a marketing standpoint, though, it seems like in order to be able to avoid that, and I think you said this earlier, don't deliver the thing except through email. So if you give me a crappy email, you're not going to get
You're not going to get your thing, right? Like,
okay.
So
and
for
you'll get pushback. You'll be like, I didn't get the thing. It's like, but you didn't put you didn't do the information right. And they can squawk and scream as much as they want. I didn't get my thing. It's like, but you didn't put your email address in.
Yeah. And if it's a paid thing, okay, sure, that could introduce some customer service. So if you don't want to deal with that on a paid thing, if it's a $7 product, then fine.
Right.
But on a free thing, you'd be like, I didn't get my thing. I'll be like, well, try it again with your real email address.
Yeah. Well, and I'm saying like a smart, I mean, not even a smart business person who is also smart with marketing, who runs a marketing company. Yeah. I would think that you would want to encourage that customer service. If this customer service bell is ringing, it gives me an opportunity to engage directly with my customer. And I know they're going to say, I didn't get the thing, but they're requesting my presence. I can probably sell them something, get them on the right list, something like that.
Right, because if you think about it, if someone is taking the time to be like, hey, I didn't get the thing, what do you know about them? They really wanted the thing.
Exactly. Put them on a better list, or it's direct feedback from your customer. You should be listening to that, but because also, like you were saying, well, that's just so you can get that instant gratification, knowing like it's already there. But we're talking about cybersecurity and making sure that the first time you perform an action is the only time you need to perform the action, right?
Yeah. And for me, like in Canada, like we have CASL in place. It's which basically means that you have to have double opt-in if you want to market to someone.
Oh,
basically.
Okay, yeah.
No, technically there's something called implicit, which gives you a year to market to them. And then at the end of the year, on like the 364th day, you need to send them a message being like, hey, do you like what we've been sending you? If you want to receive more, you need to click here to confirm and give us explicit consent to continue to email.
Do you have to do that every year or just that first year?
No, you just have to do it once to get explicit consent. But the implicit consent goes from a year from their last interaction with last time they've interacted with your business. So if as soon, like say on the 364th day they buy something from you, you get another year. But again, like as an online marketer, you need to be aware of the law as it comes to marketing, right? And in the U.S. you have CAN spam. And when we start talking about cybersecurity, I'm going to talk a little bit about how that impacts you in terms of CAN spam.
So I'm sitting here thinking, in your specific situation, you really want to be putting that free thing out there, delivered through the email, because you want people reaching out to you for that customer service, being like, hey, I didn't get this thing. And you said, okay, so let me get this straight. You didn't get the thing that you tried to sign up for through the funnel because you used a fake account because you're extremely concerned about spam and cybersecurity, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I don't want the customers. I don't want the customer service. I want them to just get their thing. And I'm pretty sure that my email is going to go to them because I know how to configure my email so that it actually goes into people's inboxes and not into their spam.
But by them getting your thing through contacting you because they're using like the wrong email address, because why would they use it? Because they're concerned about being spammed, or they're concerned about the security of that relationship.
Yeah.
Which presents you the unique opportunity, being that that's what you do, to be like, let me show you a way that I can help you do this and show you what you're looking for to not get all the spam, to get spam off your list that's on your list. I mean, you got that
I'm like,
opportunity to just roll them right
I'm
into
like,
past the $7 product.
yeah. And I'll be like,
You know,
well, I'm glad you just did that, because now, because you didn't, because you gave me a fake email address and I didn't have that. Now I actually have your mobile phone number, which is like 10 times as valuable, because now I can text you. Everyone opens text. And two, if I wanted to take over your life with your mobile phone number, I could do it. So
that's good. That's good. That's really
that's when you get click, and then suddenly the number stops working.
yeah. But that's actually a funny, like a lead into the cybersecurity tip, is that if you've ever heard of two-factor authentication, which is basically when you go to sign into something, after you put in your username and your password, it prompts you for a second form of authentication. And one of the options that you get from banks and things like that is to have a text sent to your phone. But the trick with that is that you become vulnerable to something known as SIM swapping. And what SIM swapping is that because of competition laws in the US and in Canada and ostensibly in Europe, it is illegal for your carrier to block a port of your phone number to another carrier because of competition. So if someone can social engineer and get enough information about you to convince another carrier to port an existing number, and if they can get enough information about who your current carrier is, then it is illegal for your carrier to block the port. And so what happens, and this is what actually happened most famously to Jack Dorsey of Twitter, is that's what happened, is they got information about him. So they just went to, he's on T-Mobile, they went to Verizon. They said, hey, I'd like to move my phone over to this. This is my name. This is my home address. This is whatever. They gave whatever information, and they got the number ported to a SIM card that they control. So now they're getting the texts. So what's the first thing they do? They go to his bank, they go to his Twitter, they go to this, and they go, hey, I forgot my password. And they go, okay, we're just going to send you a text to make sure it's you. And then
which I have to say, I find amusing. Well, maybe less amusing, but more ironic, considering he used to be the CEO of Sprint.
Really?
before Twitter, Jack Dorsey was CEO of Sprint.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's how they hacked his Twitter and started like spewing homophobic and racist tweets for a couple hours.
Yikes!
So although we could talk more about two-factor authentication, what I will say is, in general, if you have an option, don't use text messages for two-factor authentication. Use an authenticator application. So you'll probably see like different websites, they say like you could use the Google Authenticator. But what you have to understand is whenever you see the Google Authenticator or the Microsoft Authenticator or whatever, what they're really saying is they're just saying use an authenticator app, because for all intents and purposes, the Google Authenticator, the Microsoft Authenticator, the LastPass Authenticator, and Authy, for instance, they all do the same thing. It's something called time-based one-time password, TOTP. And they all work. So when you see they say, hey, use the Google Authenticator, you can use whatever authenticator app you want. And I actually recommend you use Authy, because one of the biggest pain in the butts with two-factor authentication is when you change phones, you have to reset up all of your two-factor accounts again, because
yeah, that's
right,
yeah,
except if you do Authy, then Authy allows you to set a backups password, which encrypts all your codes, and then it links it to your phone number. And so when you get a new phone, what you do is you download Authy on your new phone, you put in the phone number that's associated with their Authy account, and it goes, oh, great. Hey, we found an Authy account for you. Can you put in your backups password? And if you can enter the correct backups password, then it just downloads all of your two-factor codes again, and you're back up and running.
Yeah, I ran into that with my Amazon account, especially when I was trying to change phones. It was just like, hey, redo this again and again and again. And man, the rabbit hole I had to run down wasn't fun.
So, like, because I'll show you, like for you may have like a couple of accounts, but here's oh, that's not going to work. Let me turn off my virtual background.
Something I hope we might be able to circle back to. Is you were talking about the email marketing,
yep,
and implicit versus I was talking I have been talking a lot about email marketing in general,
yep,
I think those rules, and we can come back to it, they're based on things that marketers did over the last few years. And so these are the rules, like, well, now you got to like check in every 6 months and be like, is this okay?
Except
You
that
know,
that's only true if you're in Canada, because in the US you have no data protection laws.
well,
So
right. So, but my point is, maybe a savvy marketer would listen to those rules in Canada and be like, maybe if I dialed back just a teeny bit, my overall marketing may do better because
yep.
I'm responding not to the law here, but, maybe the neighbors around, and I'm just, sort of listening and be like, well, I know it says I can spam all I want, but maybe I pull back a little bit because that might be the smarter thing, because laws are laws for a reason. And they're like, all right, the buck stops here because it stopped way over here. I'm saying, like, okay, when there's a law, usually there's a little bit more customer dissatisfaction by the time a law is made. So if you look at the law and the rules and like anytime there's a rule, the rule is there for a reason. So if you look at why that's there, and I'm just saying it might be a guideline, something to look at and consider and be like, okay, with everybody and their dogs, emailing this much, maybe I email that much and just a tiny bit less as a marketing test and just see what happens. You never know. You might hear something or see something that will be actually effective that no one else knows.
Oh, well, I mean, you want to talk about marketing? Because I've been an email administrator for 20 years. There is something coming down the pipe in email that I think is going to be an absolute game changer. But it's not cheap, and it's not super easy to implement. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. Because one of the services that I do is I set up people's domains for email deliverability, so that their stuff goes into the stuff doesn't basically your stuff won't go to spam if I set up your domain correctly. And basically doing that is the first step to even be allowed to apply for the certificate that you need to get this great thing. Anyways,
gotcha. All right. Okay, good to know.
Have any of you guys heard of SPF, DKIM, or DMARC?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So so the new thing that's coming down the pike is called a BIMI, B-I-M-I record, a brand indicator mark. And if you look up a BIMI record, what it'll do, right now only Yahoo supports it, but Google is going to in the next probably 3-ish months. And I'll see if I can bring it up. But basically what it means is, right now, when you're looking at your inbox in Google, beside every email is like a little sort of chevron that's either white or yellow. And what this BIMI mark's going to do is, right on your inbox, it's going to put your brand logo beside that email subject on Google. So let me see if I can find it. MX.
I think maybe does Geico have it? I want to say that I've seen the icon, but maybe that's just me wanting to.
You only see it on right now only on Yahoo.
Oh, only on Yahoo. Okay. No, I'm okay.
So if I could bring this up. Okay. Can I share my screen?
Let me see if I can let you do that.
I'll just show it really quickly because this is the best. Oh, Bob said yes. He's heard of. I'm guessing that's yes. He's heard of DKIM, DMARC, or.
Yeah. So I just tried to share my screen and it wouldn't let me. So Bill, you need to give him permission if the. Oh, yeah, there we go.
So this is what it looks like without a BIMI record. See here, all these chevrons with a BIMI record right in your inbox. You're going to get the logo beside it. Can you imagine, as a marketer, what if you're like trying to stop the scroll basically in email, or you're trying to have your email stand out because nobody knows about this right now? Can you imagine, like, someone's going through an inbox and they're trying to decide which email to open? Are they going to open strategic and comps with the little chevron, or are they going to open the MX toolbox with the friggin' logo beside it?
There you go.
You know what I mean? So anyways,
that's going to be huge. I mean, at minimum on day one. Just because it's going to be something that's just going to suddenly pop up and it's going to be different, and every email message isn't going to have that.
No, because here's why. Because one, you have to in order to apply for the certificate you need for it, You have to have your domain set up properly, that you're all the way to a DMARC reject record.
Mhm.
And so that's just step one. Step one, you have to configure your email authentication enough that you can have a DMARC reject record. Then two, you have to have your logo, has to be a registered trademark in the United States. Okay, so you actually have to go get your logo, do your due diligence, maybe employ a lawyer to find it, and you have to take your logo and register it as a trademark in the US. That, if you just do it yourself, is about $300, I think, right now. The US, if you go to the uspto.org, you can find out what it costs to file a trademark application. I think it's around $300 US.
Yeah.
Then once you have that and you have DMARC, then you can go to someone like Entrust Data Card or DigiCert or one of those certification authorities. You can apply for something called a virtual mark certificate, a VMC certificate. And in order to get one of those, you have to basically apply. It's like applying for an SSL certificate, but you have to get to the level of an extended validation. So if you've ever applied for an SSL certificate, there's a more expensive SSL certificate you can get that gets you like a green bar in Google, basically. But in order to do it, you have to prove that you're a company. So what they do is they don't just make you prove that you control your own domain. They actually make you prove that you're a company, like that you're a registered company, and they may even ask for your articles of incorporation, sort of thing. But once you have that, the VMC certificate is about $1,900 US a year. Okay. And so I'm becoming a partner with Entrust Data Card, because I'm going to be like, now I'm going to start selling this to marketers, because
Yeah.
this is, I'm like, because I can help you. I can
There's
help
a lot
you
of money
get
here.
this. But like, if you think about it, so like say it's $1,900 a year plus $300 in the US for the first year. If you're selling a $2,000 product, if having that logo beside your email sells you one product in a year, you've paid for that certificate.
Yeah. No, I have my ears very peaked here, because that deliverability,
So two questions. Bob has a question.
Okay.
He asked, when are we getting that jewel of the BIMI?
So you can configure your BIMI. I actually have a BIMI record for my domain. I do not have a virtual mark certificate, because right now I don't want to pay the $1,900 a year, because the email deliverability for my list of 50 people doesn't really
all right, so
matter.
we're gonna do a group on here. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But the answer is, we don't know when Google is going to adopt it. Right now, Yahoo supports it, and so if you can get a virtual mark certificate because you've satisfied all those things, like you have your email authentication in place and you have your registered trademark in the US, and so you can apply for the certificate, you can actually, right now, you can get your logo to appear in people's Yahoo inboxes.
Okay.
And
Google,
we're almost as close as 3 months with Google.
And like somewhere in there, yeah. Like the guys I talked to at Entrust Data Card, they're like, we can't promise you June 1st, but like it's right down the pipe. So I'm thinking by the end of summer, Google's going to bring this on. And the very first, so to give you an idea of how new this is, the very first VMC certificate, or the very first VMC, I guess I'm like virtual machine certificate, was issued to CNN in December of 2019. So
okay, bleeding
so
edge.
there are not a lot of companies that have this right now, and right now with only Yahoo supporting it. I mean, Yahoo has a lot of users, but the crown jewel will be when Google takes it. I'm like, oh my god, like
for sure.
That's gonna be awesome. So,
Okay,
like a few months to, as Bill, as you said, a few months to who knows, right? Like the answer is Google's not putting their cards on the table being like, we are going to be supporting BIMI as of August 1st, 2020. They're not like, they're like, we're definitely adopting this. Microsoft, on the other hand, is pulling a little bit of a diva thing like Apple, and they're like, no, we're not doing this. We're doing our own thing. And I'm like, but Google and Yahoo are going to beat them into submission, and they're like, Microsoft, with all that they have, they're going to lose this battle, because this is going to be the standard. I'm like 90% sure of it.
Microsoft has touted their whole like plug and play. Now they want to be proprietary.
Now they want to be like, I'm like,
okay.
you see how that worked out for Apple?
Yeah.
Apple, who's now on that, they're like, You say we have to use a USB-C port? No, we're not putting any ports in the iPhone 12. Wireless only. Like, they're
Yeah,
so
see how
diva.
So question for you. This sounds very expensive. What happened? Two questions. What happens to the little guy? What happens to the guy who's, you know, the solopreneur who's maybe an author who, you know, doesn't have $2,000 a year or whatever to spend to go get a trademark and all that stuff, or doesn't want to. But secondly, most small time operators, and I would put all of us in that boat, use an email service provider like ActiveCampaign, Aweber, MailChimp. Those are the guys who are going to have to be buying this stuff, right? Because
No.
I'm not sending any mail from my server and never
Doesn't
have.
matter. It doesn't have to do with your server. It has to do with your domain. So it doesn't matter who's sending mail. If I send, like, because I use Office 365 for my transactional mail, and I use ActiveCampaign. It doesn't matter if you use ActiveCampaign, Aweber, whatever. The stuff is related to your domain, and it doesn't matter who's sending mail on behalf of your domain. This comes up if you've got your domain configured correctly.
Interesting. Huh.
So ActiveCampaign can't do this on your behalf. Aweber can't do this on your behalf. You are responsible for your own domain. As I like to say in cybersecurity, ultimately, you are responsible for your own S.
Yeah. Okay.
So what happens? Your question, and that's just funny. Like we basically haven't talked any cybersecurity yet, which is hilarious. But
It tends to happen around here.
Yeah. The answer is, what happens to this little guy? Well, the little guy is just going to look like basically 90% of the email, because like until, I mean, if this takes off, eventually I imagine, like, because SSL certificates used to cost a whack ton of money too, right? And partially it's a barrier to entry because they know they can, well, they know it's valuable, right? And so at some point I wouldn't expect it to come down like to like $39 a year, but you might see as it gets popular, you might see it come down in price, and as more providers are providing these or given permission to provide them, you might see that price come down. But for right now, or for the foreseeable future, I can expect that it's about this. But again, not many people are going to have these, and so you're not gonna. It's not like you're going to be. If you have this, you're the exception to the rule, I think, rather than the rule, which is why it's so valuable right now. Because once everyone has it, then it doesn't mean anything.
Right. But I mean, as the market speaks, prices will change. There will be more or less adoption of it. This could be Sony Betamax. It could. You know, it's a superior thing, but nobody wanted it. I'm wondering if, like, web hosting companies or domain registrars or whatever, they're going to get into the mix on this and say, hey, and you know, they have economies of scale, right? They can buy oodles of these certs probably at a discount, I'm guessing. I don't know. This is all new to me. Would they possibly partner with some of these entities and get that price down so that I still don't see the little guy spending even $500 a year on this kind of a thing. I mean, I talk to people who they balk at $10 a month for web hosting, so they're not going to spend $500 for this thing. If they've got, you know, if they're in that situation. So what do you see with respect to partners and other companies coming in and kind of like helping to bridge the gap, or is it just pay to play and that's what
I think you're going to find that this particular thing, I mean, and I'm not an insider on the development of this in any way, but my belief is that there will remain a barrier to entry because there can be.
Yeah. All right. Let's move to cybersecurity.
All right, you got it.
So tell us what are like the top 3 things that people can do right now to save their assets.
Okay. use a different password for every single website that you log into. Um, uh, make it a passphrase instead of a password, so that it's because with a passphrase you can make it really easy for you to remember but really hard for a hacker to crack. Because if you make your thing like I love my dog Fluffy 29, well, guess what, it's that's I don't know, like I'm not going to count it, but I'm going to say, like, let's say that's like 18 characters. That's really easy for you to remember. But an 18 character password, even though it's dictionary words, a password that long is very difficult for someone to brute force or crack, right? Now, that being said, my real recommendation is that you use a password manager. And using a password manager will help with both 1 and 2, because it'll generate it. 1, it'll help you have a unique password for every site you log into, and 2, it will generate long gibberish passwords for you that are virtually impossible for a hacker to brute force. So that's 1 and 2 to protect yourself.
Okay.
1, if I can go a little bit more into depth about 1, the reason why you use a unique password for everyone is if I don't know if you heard of when Disney Plus came out. About a month after Disney Plus came out, reports were out there like tens of thousands of Disney Plus accounts have been hacked and are for sale on the dark web. And the answer is no, Disney Plus wasn't hacked. What happened is that everyone who used the same password for Disney Plus that used for bobscomfydoggybed.com, right? They use the same password and the same email for it. So guess what? bobscomfydoggybed.com doesn't have great security, and their site got hacked. And what's the first thing that hackers do when they find your email address linked to your password on the internet? They try that on every site they can think of. It's called credential stuffing. And yeah, it's not that tasty stuff you get at Thanksgiving. It's the awful thing that hackers do to basically, you use the same password on one site and that site gets hacked. Well, then every site that uses that password is basically hacked, because hackers know that people are terrible at this, and they use the same passwords for everything. And they use the same password for their bank that they use for bobscomfydoggybed.com, which is like a self-hosted WordPress site somewhere. And coincidentally, now, because I've been using it for so long, it's now a domain that I literally registered 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
Nice. This is the terrible insecure domain, bobscomfydoggybeds.com.
So you're making that domain look as shady as humanly possible, right? You're gonna just stage something up there.
I'll do something to be like,
you can use the billboard for the National Lampoon, like, watch this movie or we'll shoot this dog. I mean, it's horribly distasteful and stuff like that, but it's National Lampoons, and when it was on national billboards and stuff, it was quite the shock factor. So you could, if you want to use the sarcasm, you might, but you might get a few people like, why are you trying to threaten a dog's life?
So, Brian, Bob is asking about your recommendation for password managers.
So I personally, right now, I like 1Password. It's 1Password.
So,
again, I have an
so
affiliate
different
link,
password for everything, but with 1Password.
But the name of the idea, it's called 1Password because the idea is it's the one password you're going to need to remember is the master password. One thing is that LastPass has had a lot of security problems. 1Password has never been breached. For one, they have one sort of vulnerability out there right now where their password manager can possibly be tricked into autofilling a password into an improper site. But 1Password has a number of things that they're helping to secure it. One, on top of your username and password, there's a secret key that never gets transmitted over the internet that you basically have on a sheet of paper that you basically print out or saved on your computer or something. 2, you can you can do this with LastPass too, but you can secure your 1Password login with two-factor authentication, which if you're using a password manager and you don't secure your login to that with two-factor authentication, I think you're absolutely bonkers. So in answer to Bob, right now, I really like 1Password. One of the big reasons that I actually moved from LastPass to it is that I really like its Watchtower feature. So 1Password integrates with Have I Been Pwned, which is a website owned by Troy Hunt. He goes out and he buys all these hack credentials off the dark web and then publishes. He doesn't publish them but he basically has a database that he makes available, and you can go to haveibeenpwned.com, I think it is. Have I been PWNED? Have I been pwned? Type in your email address, and it'll tell you every breach that your email address has been involved in.
Yeah.
So 1Password integrates with that, and so they have a watchtower feature where you put all your passwords into it, and it says compromised passwords, and it'll tell you as soon as Have I Been Pwned comes up and gets a new breach, and they find your password and email address, 1Password will notify you. You're like, yes, this password has just been compromised. You're going to want to change that right away. And it does a much better job. Like LastPass has its security challenge, but 1Password's watchtower feature is far better at indicating to you that, like, here are your weak passwords, here are your reused passwords, here are your vulnerable passwords, here are your compromised passwords. And the other thing that 1Password does that's really nice is it links to two-factor auth Anvil or something like that. What I can't remember, two-factor.org, two-factorauth.org, and we'll give you the instructions for any site that you have in it. If it's available to be secured with two-factor authentication, they'll give you a link right to this support page that tells you how to turn on two-factor authentication for that site.
Nice.
Pretty awesome.
So
that watchtower sounds pretty cool.
it
Like,
is. So
they're not,
I hope
they're
that
not under
helps.
any illusion that that
Yeah.
just because you're using it, that you're never going to have your password compromised. They're
Right.
saying it's probably going to happen. We're going to keep it from happening as long as possible. But when it does, we're going to spot it and tell you.
Yeah. And the and basically, and two-factor authentication, as Alex Meinert, I think, of Microsoft said, in their data sets, they basically said using any form of multi-factor authentication reduces your chance of being hacked or phished by 99.9%.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an incredible amount.
So literally, like, if you, and even if you're using text-based, even if you're using SMS-based, that's better than nothing. But as I said, I don't recommend it, but it's better than nothing. And having any form on there makes you more secure than that. You're part of the 0.1%.
Yeah. So okay. So a lot of the people that are in our audience are, you know, they have websites.
Yep.
And some of them are probably using, you know, like the pre-made stuff like a Wix or whatever, but some are using WordPress. And WordPress, I think, you know, it's been a little maligned because, well, I'm not going to say the because. I think you can draw your own conclusions. And a lot of people probably have their own preconceived notions, but it is hacked. You know, WordPress sites are hacked, just like any other sites are hacked. And it's kind of like, you know, in the old days, Microsoft, the OS, the operating system was, you know, was susceptible to a lot more viruses than Macintosh. Well, that's because Macintosh had, you know, a 5% market share, and Microsoft had a 95% market share. That's not the case anymore.
Well, that's still that's Microsoft. I think Mac's at about 7.4 now or something like that.
Yeah. So. And they are now, you know, a little bit more susceptible to malware and whatnot. So
they are, in fact, that Zerodium, which is an organization that basically buys bugs and hacks. They've actually severely downrated what they'll pay for Apple hacks, because there's so many iOS vulnerabilities that are being exposed right now that they're worth less.
Like, okay, so do you remember the Mac and PC commercials where, like, hi, I'm a Mac, they did the joke about, like, oh, I'm feeling sick, and it's like, well, you know, Macs don't, like, it's impossible to hack. Like, I mean, that's how, like, the marketing was meant to be. But then, like, somebody like a smart artist was like, wait a second, no, it's just that nobody wants to buy a Macintosh and then hack it because they find out. Yeah. So anyway, the comic basically was like, he's like, wait, but you don't have anybody, like, hacking you. And so the last panel was like, the PC just looked a little sick, but the Mac was just, like, in the corner crying because nobody plays with the Mac.
Well, I mean, that was some of the most brilliant advertising, because it did exactly what I want, right? Because what did Mac try to do? Mac is trying to market not as, because they use the exact same hardware that PCs use and charge twice as much for it, right? So what they have always played on is the cool factor.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Like, oh,
that's
it's
exactly. Yeah.
cool to have a Mac. And so that's exactly what their marketing was going for. And that's exactly what it achieved, right? Like the
Yeah.
PC is the crummy old accountant, and it's like the hip dude is the Mac.
And even better, like if you look at the actor who is the PC, he's actually gone on and done like a lot of work, but just, you know, in that same sense of just like, well, yeah, you wanted the cool kid, but the guy's actually a phenomenally, like, really, really funny guy. Like,
I know.
his,
Oh, he's
yeah,
amazing.
you know who, yeah, you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
absolutely.
he is fantastic. Like his writing, his comedy. I'm getting way off base here. I'm sorry, but like Mac PC, that's it. I'm done.
So let's get back to
Right. Yeah.
So okay. So that sorry. So that what was it? I was at 2, right? 1 and 2. One passwords everywhere. 2 factor authentication everywhere. Oh no, 2 was use better passwords. Okay, so 3 is 2-factor authentication everywhere. If it's possible to turn it on, turn it on. And 4 is back up your stuff. Because ransomware is on the rise. You've probably heard of it. You hear about it hitting big companies, like you hear about hitting the city of Baltimore, whatever. But the truth is that like 58% of businesses that are hit by ransomware are small businesses. The reason why you only hear about the city of Baltimore and the giant companies that get hit with ransomware is because they survive it. The small businesses that get hit with ransomware, they just disappear and they don't make the news, right? They're just gone, because right now the average time if you get ransomware to get your stuff back is about a week. Most businesses, I mean, COVID-19 has been a good show of this, but like for a lot of businesses, they can't be shut down for a week. Like they don't survive if they're down for a week. And right now with ransomware, because you have to think that these cyber criminals are actually pretty brilliant marketers. So one of the things they do now is, now that they've made all their money off of it, now what they do is they do something called ransomware as a service. So now they sell, they're like, hey, you want to hit, so we've made enough money off of this. So now what we're doing is we're going to publish the code on the dark web. And if you just want to buy the code so you can send out your own ransomware campaign, then do it. The problem is, because of that, now all the ransomware is slipshod. And so the problem is, even if you pay the ransom, there's no guarantee that the people who bought and sold this actually know how to properly get all the decryption keys to you and properly write the decryptor, because there's a very famous ransomware that just was out a couple of months ago, and the problem was that the guys who wrote it were actually pretty professional about it, but they blew it on the decryptor. And so what it would do is, on like any file larger than I think like 2 megabytes, it would like do something wrong with like the last 2 bytes on decryption and render all of your data useless. So if you paid the ransom and got the decryption tool, your stuff was still useless. Like, and
so
that's
it's like
the
paying protection money.
Well,
like,
and that's
like,
kind of the fear, right? Like, you know, there's you get hit with something like this, where like BitLocker or something like that, and
BitLocker is Microsoft's thing to protect your hard drive. Anyways, CryptoLocker is a ransomware.
Okay, you get hit with one of those type of ransomware attacks, and then you get that message, pay us or else. Yep. So then, okay, you're in like that FBI hostage situation, right? Do they, as the parents of this child that's been abducted, do you pay the ransom to try to get your child back and hope they follow through, or do you just say, well, I guess it's a loss, sorry, we'll go make another one and hope hope for the best and try to move forward, because there's no guarantee that they ever follow through with trying even to decrypt your stuff.
Now, to be fair, it's in their best interest, and most of these guys will decrypt your stuff. If you pay the ransom, they will decrypt your stuff. I'm not saying it, but because for them it's a business, right? They're not trying to be destructive. If people find out that they can't decrypt your stuff, then nobody's going to keep paying the ransom as soon as it becomes public, right?
Yeah.
Because if they know that you can't decrypt their stuff, then why is anyone going to pay it? That's bad for business, right? So it's in their best interest to be able to
Sounds like
decrypt.
Protection money. That's just...
but basically, so the answer is, the reason why you don't pay the ransom is because as soon as people pay the ransom, it just proves to them that it's a valid business model, and they're like, okay, we're going to do more of this.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
the real answer is number 4, which is back up your stuff. Because when you get the dreaded, your stuff has all been encrypted, if you're me, you go, well, first of all, that doesn't happen to me, but okay. But if you get that, you go, oh, well, guess what? So there we go. And you go, here's my backup. And it's like, oh, never happened. Right?
But while I've got you on the line, how about we chat for a little bit and I find out where you live?
Yeah. Well, they all live in Eastern European countries that have weak cybercrime laws and no extradition.
Oh, I never said anything about the police. I just want to find out where you live,
Yeah.
bro. Like, I want to go see Europe. I've never been there, and I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
You want to start messing with my business and be like, okay, we're going to talk about my business model, which is customer support. Let's call it that.
Brian, that feels like a web series that needs to happen, where you put out bait machines for people to do that to. And in the bait machine, you have everything you need to find out immediately where they are, and then you just pay them a visit with the machine, and broadcast it all on the internet.
Well, these guys don't. Yeah, these guys don't deal with phones. They all have Proton Mail accounts, which is right now the hacker email service of choice, because it like runs through Tor and it does all this stuff. Anyway, they all have Proton Mail accounts, and all you'll ever do is you'll talk to them through Proton Mail. You'll never get them on the phone. You'll never find out who they are.
Yeah,
and that's the problem with using Bitcoin as payment, is that it's untraceable. Right.
That's exactly how you do it. You'd make the series. This is me journaling, finding these hackers. This is the machine I just destroyed. I'm coming to find you. Like,
except that, I mean, what you can do if you're actually victimized by this, what you should do is you should report it to the FBI. The FBI has a website that you can report.
Yeah. It'd be hella entertaining.
and give it, and because the answer is you can try to find out where these guys are and entertain thoughts of taking your AR-47 and going and doing something about it, but the answer is the people who are actually going to do something about it are the police, and so you tell the police that you've gotten ransomware.
I have no, but for the record, I have no desire to do any of that. I'm way too lazy. I'm just leveraging the current Wolverine look I've got going. That's all.
Yeah.
So Bob is asking for backups, NAS versus offsite risks. So I mean, you would want to have both, right? You'd want something network as well as multi-location, or is that not best practice anymore?
Well, I mean, ultimately, the backup strategy is 3-2-1. But for the average bear who don't want to go crazy, using an online service, if you can encrypt your backups. If you can encrypt your backups, then I believe that that's perfectly secure. And so that's one of the things I talk about in my Hack Proof Me course, is picking a service that will actually let you encrypt your backups, so that I like to say, so the NSA can't snoop your data when it's up in the cloud.
Give us some examples of services that do that, allow you to do that. Backblaze, okay.
Yeah. Backblaze will allow you to set an encryption password on your backups, so that even if there's a subpoena for your data, and Backblaze is forced to surrender your backups, it's useless to them, because they can't force you to surrender your password.
Interesting.
And then it's encrypted with AES 256, and everything is which right now is considered the uncrackable standard. Right now, like Backblaze is one. I can't think of another one that I know of right now, but I know Backblaze does it, which is one of the reasons why that's the one that I got my affiliate link for, because the funny thing about affiliate marketing is, like, what I did is all the products that I use or I affiliate for are products that I actually have used. And I was like, oh, these are the good products, so I'm going to find out if they have an affiliate program. I don't go and find them like, let's see who's an affiliate program and I'll promote them. Right?
That's brilliant. No, that just so happens to be a similar model to gig economics. Like, the only reason why we talk about it, or anybody is seeing anything, is because we're considering it, we're toying with it. It's part of the reason why you're here. It's like, well, teach through example, learn by doing, and teach through example. There we go.
Yeah. So,
yep, exactly.
So you asked for 3, Bill. I think I gave you 4, but I think 1 and 2. We'll call 1 and 2 were really just one. So yeah. One is get better passwords. two-factor authentication, and 3, backup.
Okay.
And again, one password personal is $2.99 a month. Backblaze is $6 a month for your computer, unlimited amount of data. So now for under $10, and Authy is free. So for under $10 a month, you can basically lock down your online life.
Cool. All right. So we're at the top of the hour. This is a good time to break. This is a natural place to break this video up. But if you want to keep going, let's keep going.
I want to get this in here. Obviously one of the reasons that we asked him to come on is that the amount of value that he brings in this space is incredible. I wouldn't trust my digital life, my online profiles, any of that stuff to advice from anybody but Brian. And he's one of the nicest guys I've met on the internet so far. But Brian has offered
Canadian. Everybody, it's a requirement.
Okay, all right. I can't.
Let me just tell you one real quick story. My wife and I went to Canada quite a few years ago, like 20 years ago. I think they were getting prepped for the Vancouver Olympics. They were starting to build and stuff like that. We went to a hockey game. We're Sharks fans. We're from the Bay Area. We're not there now, but we're from the Bay Area in California. I don't remember if it was the Sharks. I think it was playing Vancouver. And we go to the game, and everybody's nice as can be. And we get out of the game. I think we won, if I remember right, the Sharks. We get out of the game, and in America, you would expect if you went to a home, if you were a visiting team and you went to the home team's place and the home team lost, you would expect to get your ass whooped.
Like in Philadelphia, Philadelphia, you don't want to be like, I'm from Toronto, so I'm a Leafs fan, right? So you don't want to be the Leafs fan in Philly when the Leafs win, right? Like,
but if you do that in Canada, it was like, when you come out of a really packed stadium or arena, you're bumping into people inadvertently, and stuff, and it's like, in Canada, it was like, oops, oh, excuse me, oh, sorry. It's like in America,
hey, your team beat my team. I think you should buy me a beer, eh?
That's right. It was awesome. So I think it's a requirement.
Totally different story if you're in Detroit. I'll tell you that for sure.
Says it sounds like a Raiders game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Brian has a course that he offers. So Brian, why don't you give us a quick overview about the course, and you've got something to give to anybody that's watching out here also. So I want to make sure that we get that in the video segment.
Yeah, so I've got I have my course / program called Hackproof Me. You can go to hackproofme.com right now. I'm actually reworking the funnel right now. The landing page of hackproofme.com just directs you to join my group, which is my business protection hacks group, which is my cybersecurity group for online entrepreneurs. Because the way that I got into this was that I've been a cybersecurity guy for a long time. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to grow my day job business of being I'm the outsourced IT guy basically for small to medium businesses in the Toronto, Canada area. And I wanted to grow that business, and I realized I knew nothing about marketing because I'm a tech, right? So I'm a system admin, and I'm like, I don't know jack about marketing. So I got together with I joined a group of people who do what I do, and Chris Weiser, who runs that group, was like, hey, do you want to go through the one funnel away challenge with me? And he started talking about sales funnels. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I don't know anything about this. So there you go. And now I'm going down the rabbit hole, right? Because now I'm like, oh my God. So I take the one funnel away challenge, of which I watched like the first 5 days I watched like the first 5 days, and that's about it. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to learn. And so for like the last year and a half, I've been like learning everything I can about marketing. But what I realized when I got into the One Funnel Away Challenge is that I'm in the One Funnel Away Challenge group, and then I got into the ClickFunnels official group, and I'm watching the questions that some of these people are asking in the group, and I'm thinking to myself, oh no, if you don't know the answer to that, then you don't know anything about the fact that when you get onto the internet, the floor is lava, and you are going to be eaten, like you're going to be eaten alive. So that's what I saw more and more, and I go, oh my God, I'm like, this is my calling. I have to teach these entrepreneurs how not to get their asses handed to them by hackers.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm trying to do. So I have hackproofme.com, which is, as I said, right now the very first page of it just directs you to join my group. That's all it does. And then hackproofme.com/gethackprooffaster is gets my 4-week program, which is where I take you through my framework, which basically follows a lot of the 4 points that I just gave you. Is like, because I can tell you to use a password manager, but for the average bear to just start using a password manager is sort of intimidating. And I will show you how to use a password manager, and how to set up two-factor authentication, and how to set up your backups, and how to get a proper antivirus, and how to secure your online life. And that's my program, and that's my framework that I believe I can teach anyone how to be more secure. So I have that, and then included in that is my Hack Proof Me course, which I basically downsell to, and it's just the recorded videos of how to follow the framework. And then an upsell of the, here, I'll just do it for you. So we'll get on a Zoom and I'll just like change all your passwords for you. And do, but
so
that's
you're definitely a tech guy, man, because a marketer wouldn't explain the entire funnel like you did. But that's why I like you, Brian. And also, I think Canada, you're still up to no good. Brian, you're a good guy, but I've still met plenty of Canadians who can, you know who I'm talking to. If you're watching, I know who you are. All right. Mr. Canadian is pretending to be nice. No, Brian's a nice guy, but I don't believe that Canada is as cool as everyone says it is, because it's not.
My favorite story of Americans crossing the border, because I had a friend whose sister worked for the Canadian Border Services Agency, and so she worked at Gananoque, which is doesn't matter. It's one of the land borders of Canada and the U.S. So she would tell us the stories of the people who would come across, and like all the Americans didn't understand they couldn't bring their guns into Canada, but her favorite one was an American who came across the border and said, so the first question they asked is like, okay, so how long are you going to be in Canada? And they were like, oh, I think about 2 days. And she goes, oh, okay, so where are you heading? They're like, oh, Vancouver. And they're crossing at Gananoque, which is like just north of Syracuse.
Right. Okay.
North of Syracuse, New York. Basically, if you drive straight up Syracuse, New York, you hit Gananoque. So they're like, we're going to be here about 2 days. She's like, it's going to take you like 5 days to drive to Vancouver, right? Because people like when people think Canada, I mean Canada's big. It's not crazy bigger than the U.S., but it's pretty big. Like Ontario, for instance, like I love when I talk to people from the U.K. I'm like, well, how long would it take you to drive from like the southern tip of England to the northern tip of Scotland? They're like, oh, I don't know, like 8-10 hours. I'm like, okay, I live in Toronto, so to drive to Thunder Bay, which is about halfway up my province, is about an 18-hour drive. So
just a quick jaunt,
yeah. But yeah, so basically I just found that all these entrepreneurs, I'm like, you guys are going to get eaten alive. So I am trying desperately to, and right now my problem is I have to convince people that they actually need to be worried about this, because right now most people seem to think that they don't need to worry about this and they're not going to get hacked. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is getting worse and worse and worse. The ransomware industry is a $75 billion a year business, and it's profitable. And these guys are doing it. And right now, there's a new ransomware attack every 39 seconds. By the end of 2021, they expect it to be down to every 21 seconds in the US.
Wow, that's insane.
I think you're hearing just tremors of the future, man. That's
50, in 2019 there were 851 million reported ransomware incidents.
Jeez.
And ransomware is underreported because there's 7 billion people on the planet. 851 million, that's like 1 in 7. It's bad, and security through obscurity is not going to protect people. And the thing is like the people I have in my Hack Proof Me program who bought it are people who've been hacked, because the problem is if you've never been hacked, you're like, I don't need to be worried about this, and you don't want to pay to learn how to not be hacked. But if you've been hacked, you'll pay anything to learn how
It's
to
like,
not be hacked.
who wants to hack me? Right? And the correct
Yeah.
answer is everyone.
Well, and
Yeah.
if we're going to continue, one of the things I'd love to talk about is like how simple it would be to hack a lot of you.
Yeah. See, okay. So Bob's got the same question as I do. Should we bring it up? Is it something because it's already been brought up a couple of times earlier, Brian, but you've already told us what your thoughts are. Do we want to cross the affiliate bridge yet?
So the answer is I do not have an affiliate program yet because, as I told you guys earlier, I've only sold 3 of these. Because as you can probably guess, doing hack proofing is not my primary stream of income right now. And so I do not have an affiliate program yet.
Quick plug. It's a side business. It's a side gig. It's
right, which makes it a gig, right?
It's totally my side hustle.
All right.
Yeah.
And right now, actually, as you're talking about how people are doing in COVID-19, as I was saying, like right now in my day job businesses, talking to like established businesses, I'm selling like gangbusters. Like people are like, yes, we need to be secure.
That was my point before. Sorry, Callan.
Sorry, to be clear, Brian, your day job business, that's you work for an employer, or you work for yourself.
No, I have my company. I've had my company since 2005.
So that's a gig too.
Yeah, technically,
it's
you're
the
working
primary
for
gig.
yourself. You're
I'm incorporated.
You're directing where you're going.
My company, BM Network Solutions, is incorporated, and I am the only employee, except that I don't pay myself a salary, but I have been a solopreneur for 15 years doing what I do, and this online business is my new side hustle.
And this is what we were talking about before about like, in like the early episodes of like taking something that you're good at, using, like Bill, you were talking about the skills, experience, and technology, and starting to group them together. And that's exactly what Brian did. He said, this is my main thing, but now I see some new opportunities. The easiest thing, the thing that makes the most simple sense is to reach for the closest thing and be like, I'm going to incorporate this side hustle into my bigger context. And it's happening all the time. So another reason why I'm glad Brian's here, because I just made the connections. I thought you were talking about like, hey, I'm an employee, but no, this is like your main gig that you've been self-employed for 15 years. You just grabbed a side hustle that also is very similar. And you're like, well, okay, I'm just going to attach it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear.
I don't think of my day job as a gig because I've been doing it for so long and it's an established business. So I don't think of it as a gig. But like technically, I guess really when it comes down to it, it really is, because it's
we kind of define the whole thing as it's job or it's not, and if it's not, it's a gig. If you don't have a boss, or if you work, I like to say, if I'm going to work for an asshole, I want to work for I'm going to work for myself.
Yeah. It's my asshole.
Technically, I have about 30 bosses, but but they're technically my clients. So that's a little bit different than having a boss.
You can fire them if you want to.
That's true. And let me tell you, there's a couple of them as I sell more and more. There's a couple of them that I'm like, you're gonna have to go because you bug me.
That's the thing, right? Finding that. That client base that's going to allow you to do the service, take your suggestions, make your life easy, make their life easy. They're not going to be one client eating all your time.
That's actually the hardest thing, and that I've only come to probably in the last like 3 months, because before I was just like, man, I need the money to stay afloat. I'll just take anything. And now I'm at the point where I've gotten enough traction, enough selling done in the past couple of months that now I'm like, wait a second, now I have the power, and I made the decision that I can say no. I can say no. Like, I can look at your business and you can tell me what you're about, and I'll see if your services are a fit for what I want to, like, I'll see if what you have is a fit for what I want to do. I'm not like, yes, I'm chasing. Yes, I want to make more money. Yes, I want more business, but I have the ability to say, no, I don't want to work with you.
Well,
right?
Exactly. That reminds me.
That's so important when we talk about that difference between doing a gig, things that we would find that fall in line with gig economics, or going to work for somebody else. And a lot of it is some of that freedom that you don't get working for an employer. Working for an employer, you have a customer that becomes a pain in the ass and wastes all of your time and lets you get nothing else done. You'd be terminated immediately for attempting to fire that client. They'd be like, what are you doing? Are you dumb? It's like, no, I'm really not. At a certain point, it makes perfect business sense to fire that client. If nothing else, just for your own happiness.
Yeah.
Being able to.
It reminds me of what Bill has said quite a few times, is you find out really quick what you don't want to do, but it's in that hustle that you find it, and you found it, and now you're like, but now I can work smarter and not harder. And you can even issue these problem clients, be like, okay, here's a new policy, it's going to be like this, da 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 da. If you don't want to move forward, that's fine. We'll end the relationship now. But if you want to stay on board, this is the new level of expectation. And I've seen this in case studies. I haven't done it myself, but numerous case studies. When the business did that, they only lost 2% of their problem people, and the other 98% just did as they were told. So like by saying this is the new rule, even the problem people go, nope, okay, whatever you say, but because you said it, this is how it's going to be.
And what's funny is that it's like, and you can read that statistic all you want, but actually implementing that is scary as all shit.
Oh yeah, no, I do not doubt the fear that it brings. But it's in that same sense of like, well, you were going to fire them anyway. Might as well see if they want to stick around.
Except that, like, before I wasn't going to fire them because I needed the money, right?
Well, yeah, that's touche.
Yeah. So now I'm at the point where I'm comfortable.
An alternative to, booting them is raise your prices for them.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There you go.
And that's and these are all things that I've been learning, and then with the marketing and having some success, actually doing some marketing, because I wasn't before. I was basically working just based on like referrals and word of mouth. Actually doing some marketing and having some success there, I'm like, oh, I don't need your 4-person business where every time I send you an invoice, you go, that seems high. I'm like, no.
Service rendered, service paid.
Because the point I try to make to people is that you're not paying me for the fact that it took me 10 minutes to do that job. You're paying me for the 10 years of experience it took me to learn how to do that job in 10 minutes.
Bingo.
I love what Bob said. Yeah.
Yep.
Bingo. And the other thing is, and you said it, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just have a different take. You said you hadn't been marketing, but you'd been doing word of mouth and referrals and stuff. Everything's marketing. You're not doing promotion.
Right. Yeah.
But you're doing marketing. Doing a good job is marketing.
Yeah.
Driving like an asshole in your company truck is marketing. It's not good.
No kidding. Eh? That's what there's a reason why there's a reason why they have the "How's my driving" sticker on the back of those guys' trucks, right? Because that's the accountability for the driver.
Right.
Because they know that right on their bumper is a sticker that if they piss someone off, there's a number that they can call to complain about that. Right.
So I have a very brief story about that. I was driving behind somebody I was taking my kids to school. And when you're driving your kids to school, you have a different kind of perspective and outlook. Guys driving like a maniac. And I saw the number on the back of the car, on the back of the truck. And as soon as I got to a place where I could call, I called. Owner answered. Owner said, and I said, this was truck number blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, I'm driving that truck. Oh, really? The owner was driving like an asshole in his truck, and he had the number on the back. And guess what? He got an earful. And guess what? He never got business. And guess what? He got the whole. When you have a good experience, you might tell 1 or 2 people, but when you have a bad one, you tell 100.
To everybody. Yep.
That's what happened.
I think the number when they did the marketing, the average, I think it was like if you have a good experience, they tell 1 person. I think a bad was 7. I think the number they come up with was someone who has a bad experience will tell on average about 7 people that they had a bad.
It is a stark difference.
I bet you that was pre-internet and pre-social media.
And now, exactly. Now, like you have a bad experience, like in my in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
In my neighborhood, there's Facebook. There's whole groups for just like
Yes.
your neighborhood. And
Right.
somebody, if you screw somebody in the neighborhood, they immediately on Facebook, you're like, this business screw me. And now like 100 people have read that your business is crap.
Right.
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 And the Google reviews and all that stuff where you can, I mean, like,
So,
yeah,
so trust me, everything you do is marketing. Even when
yeah.
you're on your own time, not doing your business, you're still marketing because people are going to tie you back to that. So
They will, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so like, yeah, I could like, there is so much more. There's so much more for me to talk about, but we're like, I know we're way over, so I don't know how long you guys.
so let's go like 5 more minutes,
Okay.
or maybe
Yeah,
I'll
'cause-
get to 9:30.
All right, so can I finish with a
Yeah.
with a little bit of a scary thing? Okay, so
Yeah.
so talking about can spam and Castle again. So when you register a domain, if you're not already incorporated, you have two options when you register a domain. You can register as an individual, or you can register as a corporation, right? So if you register as an individual, you have to put on an address basically as the registrant. You have to put on a valid address for you as the registrant of the domain. And if you go to GoDaddy, and this is why, and again with the affiliate links, this is why I recommend Namecheap. Namecheap includes something called Who is Privacy for free with every domain you buy.
Yeah.
GoDaddy charges $10 a year for it. So when you're going to choose who you're going to buy your domain name from, when GoDaddy says they'll do it for 10 and Namecheap says they'll do it for 13, in the long run, Namecheap is actually cheaper, because if you don't have Who is Privacy and you register as an individual with your home address, because the only address you have likely as an individual is your home address, then all I have to do is get your funnel, and I can do a Who is lookup on your domain, and I have your home address. And if you actually put on your mobile phone number as the registered phone number, that's also made public. Now I have your home address and your mobile phone number, and that's just from you registering a domain. Guess what I can do with your home address and your phone number?
A lot.
I can call basically any company and tell them I'm you, and probably convince them that that's true.
Yeah.
Because now let's say that's not enough. Okay, so what am I going to do? So here's one. So registering domain. If you don't have Who is Privacy, your domain, your information is just out there. But the other thing, because of Can, Spam, and Castle, at the bottom of your autoresponder, when you sign up for your autoresponder, you put in an address for yourself.
Yeah.
And because of Can, Spam, you have to have a physical address at the bottom of every marketing email that you send out. Which again, if you're an individual and the only address you have is your home address, guess what? At the bottom of every marketing email you send out is your home address. Yep. So now every rando that you're sending email to knows where you live.
Right.
So
that's comforting.
So my privacy tip.
So now, what if you're a business? If you're a business registered,
then if you're a business and all you have is your home address, then it's still your home address. So my recommendation for everyone is that you can get a United States PO box for $80 a year. Or if you need to actually have stuff shipped there, you can go to UPS and get a physical address, because UPS and FedEx won't deliver to PO boxes. So if you have a business that needs to actually accept deliveries, then a UPS mailbox is about $200 a year.
Yep.
But that gives you a valid address that you can put into your autoresponder that is not your home address, so that you're not just giving away your home address to everybody that you email.
Do you recommend putting your top competitor's home address in your?
So that's an interesting. Okay, so here's the thing. This is what most people don't know about Can, Spam, and Castle, is that if you put an address at the bottom of your autoresponder that you can't actually receive mail at, so you put your competitor's address, or alternatively you move and you don't update your autoresponder, all I have to do if I want to put you out of business is I just send a letter to the email at the bottom of your thing, wait for the return to sender, and I report you to the FTC. Right now, it's $16,000 per incident with no maximum. So you sent out 1,000 emails with the wrong address on it. $16,000 times however many emails you send out is your fine for doing that.
That's every email that got sent out, or everyone that was reported?
No, every email. Like if they investigate you, Every
Oh,
email that
wow.
you sent out with the wrong address is a possible $16,000 fine. So that's
So
another
if you've
thing that
done it for
people
a
should
couple of
know.
years or something like that, and somebody's just like,
Then it's like
bam,
then they're like so now somebody, all I do is I send that. If I want to put you out of business, that's what I do is I send a letter, I wait for the return to sender, I submit it, and now they've charged you $16 million. Here
Okay.
you go, here's your $16 million fine.
All right, now, Callan, this is what I was talking about. Like a lot of what Brian has been touching on sounds a lot like tipping point content. You
yes.
see what I'm saying? Like all we got to do is put in a few names and few ideas and be like, that's money content right there.
So those
I
are
don't know if we want to
great.
tease any more of that, but like, yeah. And Bill said Namecheap is what we use at Gig Economics. So go Namecheap.
Perfect.
I moved to that recently. I also use Google domains, but Namecheap definitely tends to be less expensive.
GoDaddy is for rookies.
We started out with GoDaddy for some of the website projects that I had been doing, and my partner actually registered everything, and we needed the stuff. He's like, well, you're always home, so we're going to just use your address and everything for the GoDaddy account when we set it up. I said, okay, cool. Well, we didn't pay for the extra protection. But one of the things we didn't know is not only is your information publicly available and unprotected, but GoDaddy actively sells it to partners to market to you. And I was literally getting 10 phone calls a day of people trying to sell me building the website for me.
I remember falling into that trap a couple times.
It's like I bought this website to build the website ourselves. We know how. Yeah. We don't need you. And yet the following day, the same group of people from the same numbers would call again and again and again. This went on for like 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, there's a reason why whoever wears the GoDaddy sports car thing, I mean, like they're the 800-pound gorilla that's just like, will that gorilla please leave? Because like there's plenty of other gorillas that can do a really good job. It's just a really stinky, gross one.
And another thing I'll say, because again, because I'm the nice Canadian guy, what I'd like to say is when I say the U.S. has no data protection laws, if you buy a .ca domain, Whois Privacy is automatically free because CIRA, which is the Canadian Internet Registration Agency, values Canadians' privacy, and so makes it automatic. If you buy a .ca domain, your Whois information is automatically private unless you turn it off.
That's okay.
That's interesting.
There we go. There's a shout out to the CA domains.
But to buy a CA domain, there's a Canadian residency requirement, right?
So, of course.
Anyway, a little plug for Canada.
Cool.
Go Canada, eh?
All right.
Go Canada, eh?
If any more questions,
I got to put it out there. Bob, Blow Daddy is for rookies. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a particular problem with GoDaddy. I mean, again, like I don't choose them for domain registrations, but for web hosting, I don't have a particular problem with them. Their cPanel is no less or more secure than anybody else's. Once you get an account with any of these guys, it's up to you to secure it. I mean, when you talk about WordPress getting a bad name, well, WordPress getting a bad name is like Windows getting a bad name. Like most of the time, the reason why WordPress is hacked is because people are bad at keeping their websites up to date.
Yeah.
Right.
Shout out for Joomla. What?
Yeah.
So that was my gig for forever. Like it was the first thing I made money on was how to build Joomla sites.
Or I think it's what is it, Squarespace or someone? One of them updates your plugins for you. I can't remember who the host is. I think it might be Squarespace.
Nice.
Squarespace, if you host there, they make sure that your plugins and everything are up to date.
Yeah. When I went through in Brian, we had done the website SEO review and looked at some security as part of that. But in the course of doing the reviews for everybody that responded looking to have that done, most of the WordPress sites, their biggest vulnerabilities came from plugins not being up to date and having vulnerabilities in the plugins.
Absolutely.
So it just really goes to show, like, even if WordPress were the most secure way to build a website on the internet, the fact that it uses plugins with third-party pieces that can't be controlled or validated by WordPress inherently makes it insecure.
And in March, when coronavirus started, the incidences of card skimming malware on WordPress sites went up 30% in the month of March, just in the month of March, 30%. Because what happened in March? Nobody could go out, so everyone started shopping online. So all of a sudden, stealing credit card data from the local winery or from whatever, all of a sudden seems like now this is actually going to make us some money. So literally a 30% jump in the month of March. And it all was based on the fact that people, and it's only possible because people don't keep their plugins up to date. People don't secure their WP admin logins very well. There's a little line of code you can add that prevents. There's one line of code you can add into your WordPress config file that will prevent basically file writing from the WP admin, that will prevent anyone from basically installing that card skimming malware on your site. I posted about it, Callan, when I had a post about it in the group.
Yeah.
I called the advanced hack was how to lock down your WordPress site. But WordPress actually allows you to one thing WordPress does really well right now is that it won't let you choose your own password. It generates a password for you. But WordPress will also let you turn on two-factor authentication for your WordPress admin. Once again, from step two, two-factor authentication everywhere, because even if someone gets your password, unless they've also stolen your phone, they can't get into your stuff.
I think the card skim reminds me, one of the things that I do within my own personal business is I work with a lot of restaurants. Their online presence, their security is horrible, like just all the way around, right? And a lot of these restaurants are trying to transition right now into trying to do things slightly more in the digital space, but they don't have the website to support it. So they're taking like credit card orders over the phone, where the people answering their phones are literally listening to the credit card number and reading it back over the phone. They're writing these things down in order to do the processing, and they're just trying to do business, but the ramifications of not looking at how that information is being secured is insane. And not directly cybersecurity, but that element of that person-to-person communication is a lot of times the weakest link in technology, circumventing the processes that are put in place that are secure. It becomes a weak link at a certain point.
Well, funnily enough, from a PCI compliance standpoint, they're actually, like, if you want to accept credit card numbers over the internet, you have to basically secure your environment like you wouldn't believe. But if you just want someone to call you with your credit card, they're like, "Yep, sure."
Because
the misnomer is that, because I mean the phone is secure in the same way that, like, right now there are companies that will still only let you, they say that you can fax information to them, but you can't send it via email because they think fax is secure. Well, I'm like, well, actually, like, so basically just like dropping a vampire tap on your phone line takes absolutely nothing, and none of that information is encrypted in any way. So I guarantee that like 99% of email is probably conducted over TLS, which is encrypted between mail servers and between your client and its mail server. So I guarantee that just out of the gate, it's probably more secure to send something over email than it is on a phone call. The only trick is that for someone to hack your phone call, it's technically like they need to physically do it. But
right. But the problem with this stuff is the endpoints. It's always the endpoints.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you have a human, so I recently had the experience of going to the nursery, and they're not letting people inside the building, so they take your credit card and they write down all the numbers on a notepad. They go back inside, they do the transaction, they come out with the paper, and they give you the paper. So that in and of itself is I accept that security, except I don't know what happened between.
Exactly.
Like,
It's
you
the
don't know if they
same
also
with-
wrote if you don't
I was
know if they
same
also
goes
wrote
with
it
the
down
restaurant.
inside, but
Like,
But no,
like I would much rather give my credit card over the internet because it's all encrypted, than to give my credit card to the waitress or waiter who can then go to the back for 10 minutes and do
yeah.
whatever they want with the card.
Like, okay, like, have you seen,
and
like, there's a phrase, I can't remember who said it, someone way smarter than me, but in order to look far a certain distance in the future, you have to look twice as far back. So if you want to look 100 years in the future, you look 200 years into the past and you go, okay, that's about, so it's like, okay, so I'm going to hand you all of my gold right now, and then you're going to go into a room for about 10 minutes, and then you're going to come back and you're going to say, this paper is just like gold. Your gold's in the back, and you can exchange this paper for your gold whenever you want. People are like, why do I need to put all my gold in a bank again? I mean, like, that's, but that's what we're talking about right now. It's like, no. Let me make sure this transaction happens over the internet. It's like, no, just let me write down all of your personal information, and then I promise I won't do anything with it on this piece of paper. And people are like, I know about cybersecurity, and you're telling me to take my cybersecurity and then just blatantly unencrypted hand it to you with your eyeballs and processing unit in your skull.
Yeah. I mean, technically, I mean, if you trust the people, and if you can watch them, if the credit card never leaves your site, then that is a more secure way to do business. Because, as I said, credit card skimming malware, 30% in March, so now it's out, now it's everywhere. So if you're shopping at Amazon, you're probably safe. But if you're shopping at like
But yeah,
Bottle Bottle, maybe not. Like,
it's the lockdown that threw all of the hackers into the briar patch they wanted to be. Like, wait, so I just have to stay at home, and you're going to subsidize me just to stay at home and just stay entertained? It's like, dude, you just gave the hackers a month of training to really sharpen their let's get hacking, let's do this.
I can probably search it up, but there are entire complexes in Eastern European countries that all they do in the entire thing is they're basically hacker farms, and that's what they do. These are big. These, like, hacking is big business. It's big business.
I'm not surprised.
And these apartment buildings are just filled with apartments full of hackers, and that's all they do all day. But what actually happened in March is that all of a sudden everyone is doing everything online. So they're like, what did the hackers go? They go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Guess
we
what?
were preparing
People
for this.
were like, we were just waiting. We were just waiting for everyone to go online and not know what they were doing. And now everyone has to go online and not know what they're doing.
I am so glad you're here, Brian.
So I think I read that Target last month, every day, their online sales were greater than they were last Cyber Monday.
Wow.
Every day of the month
every
was
day.
a bigger day than Cyber Monday last year.
And and all these people are out of a job.
Yeah.
So when we work, we can't afford to pay for things. But then when we're sitting at home bored, realizing that we hate everything about our life because we don't have all of these cool toys that we're seeing, suddenly now we can spend the money for those cool toys, and that's cool.
Wow.
But I guess it really really speaks to the sales motivation, right? Biggest thing that you'll hear from people when you try and sell something to them, the biggest objection is, that's more than I wanted to spend, or I can't afford that, I just don't have that money. And 80 to 90% of the time that you hear that, they're telling you they didn't see the value in what you're trying to sell them, not that they actually physically cannot afford it.
Right.
I mean, it does happen. Your product might be priced way outside the realm of anything they could ever scratch together to pay you. Like, I come on the phone right now and somebody tells me, they give me $1 million, or I give them $1 million. 30 days from now, it's going to be 10 million guaranteed, signed contracts. Not that it's possible, but no possible way to go back on that. And it's a sure thing. I would never be able to come up with $1 million in that week that that they're going to give me as a time limit.
Right.
$1,000 is a stretch, but could I come up with $1,000? in a week? Probably. Maybe not COVID, but go sell some plasma, throw some stuff on eBay, hawk a kid or two, and we're good to go. But and then there we are. But there's value there that motivates you to do that, to get there. And I think it's interesting to see that fact and to see it tied back in that way, I think.
Yeah, David Waldie, who's like an awesome sales guy. He said something that really like threw off a light bulb in my head. Like when someone tells you that what you're selling is too expensive, they overcome to that objection. He said all you do is you ask one question: compared to what? Right? It's expensive compared to what? Because if they're like, because like what do you think you're getting? Because he says like. His thing was he was working for a moving business, and they're like, well, your prices are expensive. And you're like, compared to what? And they're like, well, I could just rent a truck and do this myself. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, but if you rent the truck, then you're also going to need blankets, and you're going to need straps, you're going to need this, and you're going to need this, and have you thought of this, and have you thought of this, and have you thought of this? Because that objection, when someone says it's too expensive, gives you the option, gives you the ability to say, well, no, I think what you don't understand is you don't understand the value you're getting out of what I'm offering you.
Right. And that ties in real nice with security and risk, because security really is about risk. It's risk mitigation, right? Everything is hackable. I mean, at some point everything is hackable. How much are you going to pay in terms of resources? And a lot of times that's money, and a lot of times that's people. But how much are you willing to pay to mitigate that risk to within the confines of your appetite, right? Your risk appetite. One of my best friends was in the risk game with the telecommunications company, and the question always was like, if the phone company did something that was outside of regulatory approval, what's that going to cost you? And the answer was always, how much you got? Because that when you're dealing with big risks and big companies, that are talking billions of dollars of revenue, it's like they could fine you to oblivion if they wanted to, and oftentimes they do. It seems like nowadays the bigger companies are getting away with a lot more. It's not being enforced. Certain regulations and whatnot aren't being enforced, like at least in this country.
I was going to say, like right now, like I'm really interested to see what happens with Tesla in California, right? Because they were just like, you know what, like they were already in discussion with California for how they were going to reopen, but at some point they just said forget it, and they just risked it. They're like, you know what, we're losing enough money that for us the risk of the fine that we're going to catch for opening is, they probably had actuaries, right, who calculated this and said, you know what, you might as well just open, because like maybe you just get away with it, and they were going to let you open anyway. But right now you're just bleeding so much money by your only production facility in the US not being open, that they calculated the risk and said, take the ticket.
Or you fold that fine in as part of your calculated loss of doing business, and you overcome it. I won't mention where, but there's a casino that I know of that part of the regulatory requirements are the odds of playing on machines have to be within a certain tolerance, right?
Right.
So for every so much money put through the machines, a certain percentage of money has to be paid back out of the machines in order to be compliant. It's to keep
fair.
people
it's like
that are gambling.
48% or something like that.
Yeah, it's to keep people from gambling, from being completely screwed over. I mean, eventually the house wins anyway, but it just takes longer this way. It kind of gives them the opportunity to stop early,
Yeah.
But that casino knows that every month they're going to incur a fine for their machines violating that tolerance. They've done it intentionally. It's $1 million fine every month, but they know by having them dialed past that acceptable tolerance, that just throwing a number out there, they're going to make 10 million extra by doing
Yeah.
that. So the $1 million is a cost of them doing business to make
exactly.
9 additional in revenue. So why would they not do it? Where's their motivation to actually follow through with it? So it's,
That's
sometimes
the problem when the regulations have no teeth, right?
Yep. The regulation has no teeth, but a lot of times when we look at evaluating risks for our business, it's similar, right? Because initially you look at it and you're like, well, I don't want to do that because it's going to cost me a lot of money. But then when you look at the full picture and you look at the back end, you're like, maybe that doesn't cost as much as I think it does. And actually that might make me more profitable by just accepting that fine as an acceptable loss, not even taking it as a risk of maybe I'm going to get fined. I'm just going to count on getting fined and I'm still coming out ahead. So
Yeah.
That's why with CanSpan they did what
we'll
they
do it.
did, where they said 16,000 per occurrence with no maximum, because they're like, listen, you break this rule, we'll just fine you to oblivion.
Those emails have better have hellacious open and conversion records with like the highest ticket cart value I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure somebody could probably get away with a $16,000 an email fine and come out ahead, but 90% at least 99%, that's going to be a tough play.
Talking cybersecurity, really interestingly, I found out the other day, and I didn't know this, but like, so one of the reasons I use ActiveCampaign is because ActiveCampaign is currently the only autoresponder that will allow you to secure your list with two-factor authentication. But from a privacy perspective, I found out that I think GetResponse will let you use their company address at the bottom of your autoresponder, and will accept if any mail is sent to you at their address, they will accept it and send it to you. So I'm like, ooh, that's pretty sweet. That's a pretty sweet deal for GetResponse, because
Interesting.
if they let you use your company address, that's a big one. Now, again, I wouldn't choose because a PO box is $80 a year. I don't think that's a good enough reason to choose one autoresponder over another. But it was an interesting thing I found out about GetResponse, that they do.
That truly is breaking the spirit of the regulation too.
It
right.
is.
Yeah.
And while it's fun and interesting to talk about, loopholes and how to get around things, at the end of the day, you got to do what's right, I think. Yeah. And if that means, getting a physical address, I mean, not everybody wants an office. Part of our mantra here is, you work on the lowest overhead you can. Like, I don't want to hire people ever as employees. So I want to keep expenses low. I want to work out of my house. But I don't want people coming to my house, or knowing my address. Although that stuff is really easy to find, even if it's not at the bottom of your email.
That's true. While that's true, and a lot of stuff about you is public record, it's like, again, it's just not as easy to find. And when in cybersecurity, it's to some degree, it's like running away from a bear. You don't have to be the fastest kid, but you got to be faster than the kid next to you.
Right. I mean, like if you don't want your car stolen, buy a Toyota Tercel, right? Yeah. Don't buy the. What's the most stolen car? It's like a Honda.
It's funnily enough, it's probably a Toyota Tercel. But
probably it is. Yeah. But yeah, you just got to be faster than the other guy, or you got to have a worse car than the other guy, or whatever.
Yeah, but in that same vein, that's what I was saying earlier. Of like, okay, if there are certain laws that are put in place, maybe you look at the laws of ways to be a savvier marketer than everybody else. Right. Like, okay, this is definitely what you don't do. So maybe we can use the already existing laws that have made people frown and like, okay, maybe you use that and use that as your own internal guideline, not because those were the rules, but those were what you saw of like, okay, this is clearly customer feedback just translated through law. So let's make sure and stay far, far away from 85 emails a day and keep cloning their thing. But, pull it back and be like, maybe I, have these rules in place for my own business and my own preferences and so on and so forth, right? That's what I see the laws and rules and policies of like, yes, it's scary, but it can also teach us other things like well, maybe not do the same thing as this guy, and you won't end up like this guy, and you won't be the reason we have to make rules.
Yeah, I think at a certain point you've got to do self checks too, right? You know how you would feel if you were being marketed to in a specific way, and uh, as marketers, I mean, obviously we have a slightly different stance on things like getting an email sent to us and giving an email in exchange for information and that type of thing. But at the end of the day, if you do that self check and something doesn't sit right or feel right, or you're like, yeah, that might be a little bit over the line, and you combine that with trying to understand the spirit of what the specific regulations are attempting to achieve, and you stay within those parameters, it is more like ethical guidelines, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you market and you sell and you conduct business within a code of ethics that's valid. I mean, you can definitely falsify a code of ethics to yourself under some pretty invalid situations, but looking at it from a good perspective, I think you'll always be on the right track with your marketing. If you're like, man, I super hate when people cold call me right in the middle of dinner. Like any other time, like, okay, but I'm with my family sitting down for dinner. Well, maybe the normal dinner time of like 5 to 6 o'clock is not the time you should be calling into that time zone to cold call.
Right.
Maybe you say, you know what, 4 o'clock, I'm done calling into a time zone once it hits 4 p.m. After that's their time. That's their family time. That's their unwind, take off their entrepreneur hat and have a lifetime. And I wouldn't want somebody else to cut into that on me. So you just don't market at that time. And what did you actually achieve and accomplish by doing that? You set boundaries that are less apt to piss somebody off, for starters. And you're in a slightly less direct way, you're showing respect to the people that aren't even your customers yet.
And I think what you're speaking to in the bigger picture really is, when you're doing your own thing, you have the freedom to choose. Whereas if you were working in, say, a call center and they told you to call at 5 p.m., you're calling at 5 p.m. or you're walking away from your job.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You can make those choices when it's your own gig or your own business. And I'll tell you, I've worked in businesses that have call centers. They have the data. They know what they're doing. They know that they're pissing people off, but they also know that they're going to get people when they're at their dinner table. They're going to answer the phone. That doesn't make it right, but it does make it profitable.
And it's an acceptable risk thing again, right? They know if they call it dinner time, they're gonna sell to 15% of the people they contact. Yeah. And they're going to piss off 85% of the people that they contact.
Right.
They don't care about the 85%.
But that's more profitable than keeping everybody happy.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think this has been a great episode, guys. Like, I mean, I don't want to jinx it. Maybe you need some wood to knock on.
So we had a couple comments that said we should bring Brian back for an encore, and I agree.
Yeah.
There you go, Brian. The mod is spoken.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I hope is that your side gig gets off the ground, you develop an affiliate program, you come back, and things will be different then, just because they always are, and I think we'd learn a lot more.
Yeah, I'd love to have an affiliate program, and right now I will probably get one as soon as I can, or as soon as Groove Funnels builds out Groove Affiliate, which should be by later this summer, then I'll move my funnel over to them, and then I'll have a good affiliate program. But
We'll interview the Groove Funnel guys and just be like, hey, we've now have like 45 people just waiting for your affiliate program.
Actually, I think I have him on my friends list.
There you go. We're getting recommendations. Zaxa's one. I'm familiar with Zaxa. That's Pay Kickstart's another one.
Yeah.
So I'm sure.
I know all these like you can like First Promoter or and like any of those. The problem is right now I've done, like, I haven't done a lot of marketing of this Hack Proof Me program because I've been doing so much day job business that I haven't had time to devote to my side hustle. But like, of the marketing that I've been doing, and I've now got a Facebook group that I think is like 86 people or something. Which I would love more people to join, but basically, of the marketing that I've done, I've only gotten 3 people to buy. So and I've been in front of a lot more than 3 people. So until I figure I've got my messaging to a point where people are, or until I can prove to myself that I can actually get people to care about their cybersecurity, because right now, literally in my dark thoughts, I'm like, you know what I could do? I could just go and hack everyone, and then they'd buy my course. Because
Right,
as I said,
yeah.
like if your who is privacy isn't on, and I have your home address, then all I have to do is I get your funnel, and then you get me to join your group. So I friend you on Facebook, and I bet you anything, you probably have your birthday published to your friends. So now I have your home address, your mobile phone number, and your birthday. And
Well,
guess
see,
what?
yeah, okay, so I honestly, like, this is we're wrapping up after this. We have what's called a post-mortem. So we hope you stick around. We chat a little bit about the episode and what we can do to help market it. For those of you who are watching, if you want to know what that's like, if you have a product or something like that, we have something called a post-mortem after the interview, and we discuss, hey, how can we take this really cool interview and do your thing even better? If you watch the YouTube videos about Gig With Us, you'd already know that, or you just go to the YouTube channel and subscribe if you haven't, because maybe you haven't. Just putting that out there. Right. So again, as we're wrapping up, Brian, do you mind hanging out for a little bit and joining us for the post-mortem after the episode?
Sure. It's only 1 a.m. here.
Appreciate it. I know it's late. We'll hammer it out really fast.
All right,
okay.
guys. If
I work
you
late
guys
all
are
the
watching, and if Brian has given you guys value, if you like what he's doing, you like what he's talking about, you want to learn more about keeping yourself safe online, go support him. You said it's hackproofme.com is how to get to your group.
It's hackproofme.com. The first page is a video, and the only button is to join the group. Then once you get into the group, then in the welcome message, you'll find out about the Hack Proof Me program and stuff like that. But
Bada bing.
I'm looking at finding a different way to run that funnel. But for right now, my group is called Business Protection Hacks. If you look it up, I don't think there's any other groups that are called anything close to that. And that's where although I've been terrible at it this week, is where I post about stuff that you might want to be aware of, the stuff you might want to think about, stuff you can do to protect yourself online. And so I'm trying to bring awareness to this, because maybe I'm wrong about this, but I feel like people not taking their privacy seriously is far more likely to hurt them in the long run than to just leave them okay. But again, right, for me right now, Hack Proof Me is a little bit like trying to sell life insurance. Nobody wants to buy, like, people generally don't want to buy life insurance because they're like, I'm not going to die. And I'm like, the problem is, it is my serious belief that if you do nothing and you continue as you are with using winter 2018 as your password for every site, the answer is that you are going to be, you will be hacked in the next 5 years. And when that happens, you will wish to God that you had bought my $500 program. Right?
I mean, it's an absolute certainty. 100% of the people who are born will die.
Yeah.
So if given long enough, 100% of the people that are on the internet unsecure will eventually be hacked.
And just as a last thing, like the average ransomware right now demand is about $5,000. One of the more famous ones out there right now is called Ryuk. Their initial ransomware demand generally is about $2.2 million. I talked to Coveware, who does ransomware negotiations with people. The lowest they have ever seen the Ryuk people come to is $37,000. So if you get Ryuked, the lowest thing they've ever seen is $37,000. I got brought on. I now have them as a client because they got Ryuked. They asked them for $130,000 to crypt their data.
Jeez.
And so I said, well, guess what? You don't have $130,000, so your stuff is gone, but I can make sure it never happens to you again.
Wow.
I'll do that for only 75,000. No.
Yeah. Actually, quite a bit less because they were just a 2-person company. So they're like their bill is, I don't know, a couple $100 a month. So
All right, let's end it there. I'm gonna end this for everybody who's not us. But let's definitely talk about this a little bit more.
you got it.
Right.
Thanks for watching. Anybody who watched.
Thanks for joining us, guys, and come back next week.
See you next week. It was great. Bye.